Welcome to our third video focused on access queries. In this tutorial, I want you to try to spend some time on your own completing examples 11 through 17. Um, so let's go ahead, and I hope you took the time to try to do these on your own, but I will go through the results now one by one. So we're going to start off with order details with order quantity between 2 and 4. So I'm going to go to my wizard. Always make sure you don't pick an existing query. So I'm going to go to the query, the order details table, select all the fields, and I'll name it query 11. I believe we're on. Finish, and then I'm going to go into design view. And where it says order quantity, I'm going to add the criteria between 2 and 4. And remember the first and last number are inclusive in the results. And I'll run it, and all the order quantities are between 2 and 4. So I'm going to close and save. So now we're on to number 12, where we want order date equal to January 1st, 2010, and order quantity greater than 5. So we have two criteria, and notice that this is an and rather than an or. So we want those to be on the same line, the criteria line, and neither of them be on the or line. So order date 1/2010, order quantity greater than 5. So I'm going to do the same thing we did before. So we're on query 12. And I'm going to go into design view. And now I need to add two criteria. So if I want an exact match for an order date, I can just type the date. And we want order quantities greater than 5. So notice it added the pound signs in there after I. So we have the two criteria again on the same row. Neither of them on the or row because it's an and. It has to meet both criteria. And we click on it, and here we see all the big orders that took place on that date. So I'm going to close and save. And we'll move on to query number 13. So all fields in sales region. So I'm going to go to my wizard, pick the sales region, all the fields. We're on query 13. And now we want a criteria where the country region code is not equal to US. So I'm going to go to, I haven't had an example of that yet, so I'm going to go over to the guide here. And here we have an example of does not equal. So not in quote X. So we want the word US instead of X. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that just to make it a little easier. And I'm going to go into the design view. And in the country region code, I'm going to right click and paste. And then I'm going to change the X to a US. So we should get only countries outside of the US. So I'm going to run, and we've eliminated the US from the list. So now I'm going to close and save. Excuse me. And we'll go back to number 14. This time we want to have product names that contain a Z or contain an X. So in our criteria guide, for the contains, again, it's going to be like. So I can right click and copy that criteria. First I'm going to use our wizard. Let's see, what's the name of the table again? Product category table. So I'm going to the wizard, selecting product category, all the fields. We're on query 14. And we're looking for product categories. Oh, I made a mistake here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete query 14. So this is a good example here. I really should have been using two different tables. So I'm going to close out of this and I'm going to delete query 14 by right-clicking on the query name and deleting it. So you always want to have a clean set of queries. One thing that I find annoying is when a student makes a mistake and they have two things out there and I'm not sure which one is correct. So my mistakes are not really mistakes, they're learning opportunities. So we have a learning opportunity here. So reading the instructions carefully here, we want a product category all fields and product name all fields. So I'm going to go to the wizard again. And I'm going to go to the product category and select all the fields. Then I'm going to go back to the drop-down box and select the product name and select all fields again. And I will name it query 14 once again. And I'm looking for product names that contain a Z or an X. So I'm going to go into Design View. And now I'm going to paste what I had previously selected from the website. And as luck would have it, X is actually one of the things that we're looking for. So I'm just going to leave that criteria as is. And now I'm going to go down to the OR line and paste again. But this time I'm going to change the X to a Z. So we're looking for either X or Z. And I'm going to go ahead and run it. And here's, I only get 4 records, 2 with Z's and 2 with X's. And I'm going to go ahead and close and save. So our number 15 is a parameter query. Order details where standard cost is greater than an entry. So I'm going to go to my wizard. And I'm going to name it query 15. Then go into Design View. And now where it, we want the user to enter a standard cost greater than whatever's entered. So here's the standard cost, and we have to put a greater than in sign. And then I'm using my brackets, again next to the letter P in the keyboard, and I'll type a message like enter minimum cost. And then close bracket. So I've got a greater than sign and then bracket and then whatever message I want to pop up, such as enter something English like enter minimum costs. So when I run it, I'll put thousand in, and here I get things with costs greater than 1,000. And again, the number that the user enters isn't part of the query. The parameter is what's saved in the query. So I'm going to close and save. I could run it again if I want. Enter 3,000 for the minimum cost. And when you get this, nothing met the criteria. So I'm going to close out of that and run it again. Put 2,000. And we do get some things that are greater than 2,000. Notice that nothing is greater than 21, so that's why I didn't get anything when I hit 3,000. And I don't have to save because entering an entry in the parameter doesn't actually result in a design change to the query. Okay, so now we're on to number 16. This is a totals query because we're showing average. This time we're not deleting fields to get started, we're just selecting the fields that we want. So we want product category and standard cost from two different tables. So I'm going to my wizard, and I'm selecting product category, and then I'm going to the order details table, and I'm selecting standard cost, and I'm just going to go ahead and finish it, name it query 16. So now I have for each order what the category was and what the cost was, but now I want to change this from showing every single standard cost to just the average per category. So I'm going to go back into design view, and I had to click away, but in the standard cost column, I'm going to click the totals button in the toolbar, and it adds a row called total, and it adds the word group by the product category and by the standard cost. In order to change the standard cost to an average, I want to click where it says group by and then click the drop down box and select average. And then when I run it again, as you can see, now it gives me the average cost for each product category. Okay, so I'm going to close that and save it. And move down to one last thing, which will be a calculated field. This is similar to what we did in number 10, but this time rather than multiply by order quantity on both sides of the equation, we'll just have a field named profit that's unit price minus standard cost. So let's go into our wizard. And I'll name it query 17. And in design view, I'm going to go to an empty column. I'm going to space it out to give myself a little more room. And on the top line where it says field, I'm going to give the field a name. So I'm going to name it profit, and then I'm going to put a colon to separate the name of the field from the equation. And then I'm going to carefully type the equation that I want to include, which is unit price minus standard cost. And then I'm noticing there's no spaces in there. Unit price minus standard cost. I didn't really need any parentheses for this one or any brackets or anything, but you just have to be careful about the syntax. If you create a calculated field, let me go ahead and run it, and I get my results, which show this number minus this number for every row. Let me just show you if I had a typo in it. So let me go back to my design view. Let's say I left the T out of price. So now it says UNT price minus standard cost, which is not a valid field name. But if I click run, it says, well, I didn't find UNT price, so why don't you enter it for me? And if I just put like a number in, 5, then it gives me a result. But this isn't what I want. So this is the incorrect value. So if you're getting a pop-up window, then you probably have a typo somewhere. So let's go ahead and fix that and change it back to unit price. And I will run it again. And this time I will close and save. And that concludes this part.